In a world where dreams meet reality, there exists a place where your business can flourish. That place is Shopify. Imagine having the power to craft your online store with tools that make it as easy as a gentle breeze. Whether you're an artisan of handmade wonders, a creator of digital treasures, or a curator of the latest trends, Shopify stands by your side. With its customizable templates, seamless integrations, and support that's always there, your dream store is just a heartbeat away. Join millions of visionaries around the globe and let Shopify guide you on your journey. Visit roguemedianetwork.com/Shopify. That's roguemedianetwork.com/SHOPIFY. And embark on your free trial. Shopify, where your commerce dreams come to life.
Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
I thought I saw something.
Did I lose you guys again? What?
Someone.
What's going on? What are you guys looking at? Abaddon eyes. That's what we call it. Everybody feels like they saw something out of the corner of their eyes or just felt like they were being watched. It happens to all of us. Just our imagination's messing with us.
Abaddon eyes.
You coming?
Hello, sir.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Very good.
That's
Very
great.
Good.
Nice to meet you. I'm Mike. This is Casey.
Hello. I don't know if you can see me.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Here.
Off to
There
the
is
side.
another
there
person.
we are. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like
How's it going?
It's kind of like the clowns. You turn around and there he is.
Just sitting there.
So,
How
Joe,
you guys doing?
we're doing okay.
Doing well.
Number one, thank you for coming on and
Yeah,
doing
of
this. We really appreciate it. We started this thing by talking to Steven, and I think we kind of fooled him into letting us do this thing, and so that's great.
Yeah.
But we talked a little bit, and basically this whole thing is about the lore and the world building that's going on in the movies. So we don't want to add to, we don't want to take away. So this is mostly about the characters, about what we think is happening, what we think might happen. So that's basically it.
Gotcha.
We want to talk about, we'll talk about you, but then we also want to talk about the importance of the clowns, the where we think the story is headed. I know you can't tell us a whole lot.
Mike's going to try real hard.
I'm going to try real hard to tell you about that fifth movie.
Yeah.
But yeah.
How many people have you got on this so far?
I think you are number 6, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, we've talked to 2 from the 4th movie. We talked to Tully,
Margot.
he was fantastic,
Molly.
by the way. He would stay in character the entire time if you asked him
Brian?
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course you would.
He's really great. Anyway, yeah, we've talked to several folks, and again, I can't thank you enough for coming on and doing this.
Yeah,
I really appreciate it. Some weirdo on Instagram hits you up, and then you show up for a Zoom call, so it's great.
Well, we're a big proponent of people who, I mean, these movies don't get seen unless people are talking about them. So
Yeah.
we're happy to be a part of any of these things that kind of support the lore and get more people to watch it.
That's
so
excellent.
Thank you.
That's excellent.
And when we talk to the actors, I told Mike, I said, you never think about it, but they really enjoy talking about their craft and how they got to that character, how they created that character.
Right.
Margot, the Margot character, she was very excited
She
to
was very
speak
excited.
about that because she had put a lot of time in it. It was just amazing,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
It was crazy because this last movie, not to say that we haven't had this before with previous casts, but the way Steve and I have been doing this now for close to 10 years. I think Steve and I met one another in 2013. So we've been working with each other for a decade now. And I think, when you first make a movie, and especially it being a found footage movie, you kind of have this thing when you're a first-time filmmaker and you're putting some stuff together and you're bringing a cast together. You kind of get that impression on set where people are like, yeah, this isn't really going to go anywhere. Like, this is fun. Yeah. I mean, who's going to see this?
Sure.
And we're also talking about a time before, like, this is kind of the early days of streaming.
Oh, yeah.
So when we got people together, our first cast, they were incredible. And I think they're a big part of why the first movie is so successful.
Mm-hmm.
But they were all people that were around the same age as Steve and I, and they were both, doing things in their career, having their hands in multiple projects and so on and so forth. And then as, it built, I think when we shot the second one, we still didn't really have a following.
Mm-hmm.
It was towards the end of the second one was when our following started building, but it wasn't until this most recent one where, one, we definitely worked with the youngest cast in this most recent movie. So, those two girls, they're kind of in their early 20s.
Yeah.
So that excitement and that it was really palpable on set. And that whole, it was the first time I think Steve and I had been on set where someone was like, thank you for choosing us.
Oh, that's
awesome.
awesome.
It was that like, hey, thank you for letting us be a part of this versus someone being like, okay, what do you want me to do for this bullshit short period?
Yeah, sure.
Like, it felt much more organic. And I think those girls put a lot into it. Even our character who played Chase, I can't even remember his name, but James. So James also put a lot into his character as well. But yeah, those girls went crazy. I'm sure you guys saw netsleuths.com.
Right? That's what I was going to say. I mean, anytime you get you have people that'll go out and do that on their own, holy crud, right. You've really got something. Yeah, and
you got a marketing machine that you don't have to spend any
That's money it, right? Yeah, it's absolutely. So let's talk about you just for a second, Joe. Is it okay? I just call you Joe?
Yeah, that's
okay. So Secret Service. Tell me about that.
Well, he can't.
So
it's a secret. Yeah.
So I always say I always had a following of wanting to like serve a bigger purpose and put my life on the line and I've always felt some form of loyalty to our country and whatnot. Hence all the cast.
Sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
But I think back then, I was really committed to kind of working for the federal government and doing things that a lot of people didn't want to do.
Yeah.
Basically, I went through 2 years of testing and processes and all that kind of stuff. And the easiest way to describe it is what happened to Paul Dano's character in Little Miss Sunshine is what happened to me.
There you go.
So colorblindness wasn't really a thing that they wanted. So it was a good and a bad thing. It was a bad thing because that might have been the first time in my life that I ever felt a small sign of depression.
Yeah.
But it was a good thing because up until that point in my life, I'd let other people dictate things to me like, you can't do this because no one we know is successful in that, or you can't do that. And that kind of set the whole bar for me of being like, I'm not going to not do something just because people say I may not be successful in it. I'm going to do whatever I want because I've already been told I can't do the thing that I want to do because of something I have no control over. So,
that makes total sense, though. Yeah. And so, by the way, this is Caitlin. Caitlin, stick your face in there.
Hi, Caitlin.
Hi.
Yeah. So, Caitlin is half of another podcast we have on the network here called Boobays, and Boobays is a horror movie review show. So, two best friends. They review horror movies. You've been doing it for what, year and a half now?
Yeah.
If not longer. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they had actually reviewed Hell House LLC, the first one, at one point. And when we started talking to folks involved in the other movies, then they went back and they did 2, 3, and 4. And so,
nice.
We're all big fans. So this is.
I would assume 1 did better than 2 and 3. That's the usual.
Yeah. I think we gave 1. We had to go back and retroactively kind of add some points to 1 once we watched 2 and 3 and like really got a feel for the whole world that there was. We we gave it 5 boos, which is the highest rating you can get.
5 boos.
Awesome.
Well, and that's the thing, you say that about 2 and 3, but it's something you have to view all together.
Yeah.
That's what I told Mike. I said when Carmichael Manor came out, I could not believe the amount of people online that were saying, why are they going back and talking about the clowns again? I said, that's like talking about Star Wars and wondering why the Jedis are in there. It's just it's part of the lore.
I mean, the clowns are an area of interest because even though we have a trilogy prior to this most recent one coming out, we don't really ever talk about the clowns. The clowns there, it's creepy, but there's no history to that whatsoever.
Yeah. Oh, there's a black cat. Oh no.
Hello, kitty.
The interview is doomed.
Well, if the cat walks by again, it's a glitch in the matrix.
That's right, it's a glitch. So, tell me about this. Just one more question about you, and then I want to get into the Hell House stuff. So, Dumb and Dumber, huh? You watched Dumb and Dumber, and that's what made you want to make movies?
So this is going to be a long answer, so I apologize.
No, you're good.
So I kind of have had milestones throughout my life that have actually put me into the position that I'm in right now. So the first milestone was the first cartoon that I can remember, like that gave me any form of, horror would be interesting, was The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. Disney's The Legend of Sleepy Hollow.
Gotcha.
Saw that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Loved it.
Yeah.
Funny enough, it actually... my life is going in that direction because I'm looking at property in Sleepy Hollow, New York.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
look at
that's
you.
so cool.
Yeah. So, but anyway, so that was the first thing. The second thing was when I was, I like most probably kids, I'm not going to stereotype and say boys, but it probably was more boys. Reading was a thing that was like you had to do it in school, but you never really wanted to do it.
Sure.
And when I was in middle school, I had an instructor that made us read Agatha Christie's And Then There Were None. Mm-hmm. And that I didn't want to read it. I think I read the Spark Notes version of it or the Cliff Notes version of it.
Sure. And
I got to the ending and I figured out who the killer was. And then I went into class and we started talking about it. And I was like, wait, this is actually much more interesting than the 3 pages that I read. Yeah. And then as I started getting into it, I was like intertwined into the world of murder mystery. And then like 3 days into it, I was like, I just ruined the whole thing for me because I know who the killer is.
Yeah.
And I was so upset, but that really changed my mind and put me onto murder mysteries and all that kind of stuff. Third, when I was a kid, my mom dated a sergeant in the Army who was an asshole to my brother and I. Not in front of my mom, but whenever she wasn't around. And he forced us to watch Nightmare on Elm Street when I was maybe 5. So my brother was young. Geez. And we were terrified. But when I was 10, I went back and I said, my mom was very big on, as we got older, she didn't want us to leave the house. She didn't want us to go out. She was getting nervous about her kids leaving and blah, 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 leaving. So she told us, if you stay home, I think I got this more than my older brother did, but she said, if you stay home, I'll rent you anything you want to watch from Blockbuster. So I said, okay, this could be interesting. So I basically said, there's got to be a reason why so many people are so scared of Freddy Krueger and so afraid of these characters. So I basically started watching every single movie in every single franchise. And basically between the ages of 10 and 12, like went through Halloween, went through Friday the 13th, went through Nightmare on Elm Street, went through Child's Play, went through all of these franchises, and I was hooked. Yeah. But I'm a huge comedy guy. Like you guys maybe don't know this for me, but a lot of the stuff that I do and a lot of my professional work, aside from Hell House, has been more in the horror comedy world than it has been in the specific horror world. Okay. So it wasn't until Dumb and Dumber that I think a lot of people see that movie and go, wow, this is really stupid, or this is funny because it's really stupid. Yeah. I saw that movie and I said, oh shit, like the writers here, they're really smart. Like they're making jokes that are really intelligent, but they're actually making them seem dumb for these other people. And it's one of those movies, like many comedies, it's one of those movies that every single time you watch it, you'll be like, I didn't realize they were saying that. I didn't realize they were referencing this. Yeah. And so combine that with the storytelling aspect of a murder mystery, and I was like, oh, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I've wanted to do that since I was 10, 12 years old. But like I said, I grew up in a family of doctors, lawyers, teachers, and most of them were always like, well, you're not going to be Brad Pitt, so there's really no point in doing this.
What a terrible thing to tell a kid. Yeah, it's awful.
I don't know if that was them telling me I'm up.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's rough. So I get it. understand exactly what you're saying about the number one. I'm old enough to, and Casey and I both, we're old enough to have watched most of those franchises in a theater, right? And so it was a huge part of my life. Like I still have a Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D poster on my wall at the house that I bought at the theater, right? So that was 114 years ago. And so I love horror movies, and I love schlocky horror movies also. So the weirder Jason gets, the better. You know, I'm on board. Now, when you pull Freddy Krueger through the door at the end, or you know, the mother gets pulled through the door at the end, I'm out at that point. Yeah, I'm a little out there. But and then as far as Dumb and Dumber goes, it one of my favorite movies of all time is Office Space, and it's kind of the same kind of thing. You know, you don't get it all anytime you watch it. You know, there's something you're missing every single time, and so I completely understand what you're saying with that. Comedy and horror are pretty closely related.
Yeah,
they can be.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have to say, with the way he says he was treated as a child and his fascination with murder mysteries, we may be needing to turn this tape over to Dayline NBC at some point in the future.
If you'll look behind you, there's a cameraman.
The funny joke in my family is that my brother, for a long period of his life, never wanted to watch horror movies and was terrified about them. I actually think me being interested in them and writing them and directing and producing them, I think that's what kind of brought him around to watching them again. But it's funny to see how two children very young have almost the exact same experience and go in completely different directions.
Sure. So tell me about, tell me how it was ratcheted up each time you made one of these movies. Okay, so Hell House, the first one, 2015. What put you there to make this movie? Number one, you know what, you could make anything, right? But this is the thing you made. So why is that? And then how was it, again, like I say, how was it ratcheted up each time? Like either budget or story, or how does it build on it?
Right. So I think when you start making movies and you start working in the world of film and entertainment and all that kind of stuff, one of the first pieces of advice that I always tell people, because this is what people told me, is say yes to everything. Like you have to say yes to everything. And so when I first got done with film school in 2008, 2009, I started saying yes to everything. Yeah. I was working as an AC, as a gaffer, as a grip. I didn't love sound, but I tried. I was just doing anything. Anytime someone said they needed help on something, I would be a part of it. Yeah. And then after about 2 years of that, I started getting to a point where I would be on set with people and they would be like, I'd be a grip, let's say, or an AC, and I'd be on set and I'd be talking with the producers and I'd be like, oh, I have this script or whatever. And I started noticing that people aren't looking at me the same way. Like they wouldn't take me as serious. Like, oh, this guy who works in the grip department wrote a script. It's like, and so I kind of made a conscious effort around 2012, 2013, that I'm not going to be hired as any type of technical role. I'm not going to, I'm only going to accept jobs as a writer, a director, or producer. Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, what's the first? No one's going to be like, here, go write something. Sure. You don't get those offers right away. You have to prove yourself. Yeah. So I started a sketch comedy group, and then I joined another sketch comedy group, and we were just churning out content and doing all of these things together. And one of my mentors at the time was like, you need to direct a feature. Like, that's what you have to do. You need to get a feature under your belt. So I saved up as much money as I could. And with my writing partner at the time, we were in the process of developing a feature that was called Seclusion. It's known as Cabin Fear, but there's a story behind that. But anyway, we were going to go make that movie. And while that was happening, I had been connected with Adam Schneider, who plays Matt in the franchise. And him and I had been friends for a little bit. We'd worked together, and he reached out to me and he was like, hey, do you know anyone who would produce a horror movie? Yeah. And I think I've said this numerous times, but I said, yeah, me, you dick. I would do it. and so my whole feeling on it is like, I think this is where Steve and I differ. Steve is a writer-director. Mm-hmm. Steve likes to write his own content and direct his own content. Steve's not very much interested in someone else writing something for him to direct, and he's not interested in producing. Gotcha. I consider myself more of like a filmmaker. I want to be a part of really good stories. Now, I have good stories to tell. I feel like I've written good stories. But I also know that there's other stories out there and there's other things out there. So for me, if someone has a good story or if someone brings something to me and I like it, as long as I'm in one of those 3 roles, I have no problem being in a different role. I don't always have to write it. I don't always have to direct it. I don't always have to produce it. And so this for me was an opportunity of, let me see if I can work with someone else who is a writer director and see if I can help them bring what their idea is to fruition. And so even though I work in a creative field, I still have a very structured brain. And I think when I met Steve, what I realized right away is Steve has a little bit more of a creative brain. And when you have someone, not to say that when you have both, it's hard because at times you're trying to be creative, but then the structure comes in and goes, this is the budget, this is how you have to do that. So it restricts you at times. So what really worked out well for Steve and I was Steve was able to be creative and I was able to be like, that won't work. This will work. That won't work. And we were able to kind of work that way. So when we made the first movie, my mindset was, this is 2 features that I get to make in this year. So I get to go from doing 0 features and now I'm going to produce a feature and I'm going to write and direct a feature. So it was like, this is a great opportunity for me. At the very least, I'm going to have 2 films that I have a ton of experience on at the end of this year.
Yeah, sure.
So the big thing with the first one that was different than all the other ones is the first one, Steve already wrote the script and already had the location, the Waldorf that Angie Moyer owns.
Right.
He already had that as the place that he was going to do things. So when he brought me in, it was, I gave him budget changes. I helped him with budget. I helped him with crew. I gave him story notes and everything. And the best part of what I always say with Steve is I'm a very opinionated person. And I think it's historically known that I'm the logic police on the Hell House sets. So the thing that I think worked really well was Steve didn't have an issue with me telling him when I thought something didn't make sense or was dumb or was stupid. And I could be myself and I could be direct and blunt. And maybe he did take some things personally, but he never really showed it. So we were able to, like, I didn't have to shield myself from giving him my honest opinion. And I also thought it was really interesting because I had never really been a found footage horror fan. I saw Blair Witch in theaters. It made me want to throw up. I just wasn't into it. And I guess I was too young to really appreciate the .com and what they did with the internet and the marketing on there. Like, I very much appreciate it now. But Paranormal Activity I thought was amazing. I was blown away by Paranormal Activity. But there was hundreds of other found footage films and none of them were really successful. And so I wasn't fully like, yeah, this could be cool. But I was like, this is a good way that we can do what you want to do, Steve, for the budget. Because I think his original version of Hell House was a narrative film. And he realized very quickly, there's no way I'm going to be able to afford this.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I can't imagine what the budget would be on something like that if you were actually making a full feature. You know, that
absolutely,
that is the one thing. And I guess that's why there are so many of the found footage movies, because it is a cheap and easy way to get into filmmaking and then hopefully develop it over the years.
100%. And it also is very forgiving for someone who's a first-time filmmaker to make mistakes.
Sure.
Because if you're doing that in a narrative setting and you make mistakes, it's kind of obvious.
Well, the found footage thing almost welcomes mistakes at that point, you know, because it just becomes part of the story.
Absolutely.
So why are you always in the clown suit? What bet did you lose?
So I'm not only am I not always in the clown suit, but up until the 4th film, I'm always a camera operator in every single one of the movies, and I die in every one of the movies.
So Louis, Malcolm, and Jonathan, right?
Jonathan.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So in the first one, I didn't play the clown. In the first one, the clown is in there so infrequently. I think the clown's in 3 scenes in it.
Yeah.
The clown that moves is in 3 scenes. I think when we first made that first film, this was like guerrilla, let's do whatever we possibly can, all hands on deck, let's make this movie. So when we did which was my favorite sequence in the movie, that malfunction, everyone leaving the house, police and all that kind of stuff, come to, like, Steve was the YouTuber. So he's filming, and he's filming because he knows what he wants. That's why he's the YouTuber.
Sure.
I'm in the house, throughout the house, hidden in black, with different like walkies all over me, cueing different people and running through, and at different times cueing this audience, cueing that group, cueing the cops, cueing the ambulances. So we put ourselves in a position so that we can do our best work together while also not having it be something where we need 75 people or multiple millions of dollars for this.
Yeah.
And I think what happened was when we got to all the stuff with Diane, it was very obvious that Diane had 2 people with her. So we were like, okay, who's the 2 people with her? We never really cast for those. And I was brought on as the producer, and Matt DiPaolo was our casting associate, and he's also really good friends with Steve. So both of us stepped into the Malcolm, was it Malcolm and Jonathan roles? The Malcolm? No, it was Mitchell. Mitchell and Jonathan.
Mitchell.
Yeah.
So we were the voices and everything. And then Steve said to me, he wanted me, because I'm a filmmaker, to be the person in the final sequence operating the camera. Okay. Because in the first movie, our DP Brian was great, but Steve didn't want to do a lot of stuff where the DP was operating the camera. He wanted the actors to do it. And I think you see that organically play out a little bit better. Yeah. So Steve was like, there's so many technical moments when we walk through that house in the end with Diane that he wanted to hit one corner because there's someone in the, like in the shadows. We walk by and you see Alex somewhere. We walk by, like there were different things that he needed to be hit. Right. And he wouldn't really trust an actor who'd never used a camera before to be able to make sure you frame this, make sure you hit that. So that was the reason why I stepped into the Jonathan role. And then the clown in the first one, Alex who plays, or Danny who plays Alex, and Jared who plays Tony, they both wore the costume because it was like, you're not in this scene. We need someone to wear the costume with this costume. Yeah. When we get on to the sequels, though, the second one, the clown became a bigger component of it. And Steve was like, how should we do the clown? And I just love, like, I think I like hiding behind masks. So I was like, I'll just do that. So again, Malcolm was chosen because of the way the camera works for us. So that's why I was that character. And then the clown was just a lot of fun for me. And I was like, I love doing this. And again, low budget. Yeah. If Steve's like, oh, my producer's going to do this, that means I don't have to pay one other person to do this. So it's like, great. And then the third movie, again, Louis was my character, put in for specific shots and things with the main character. And in the clown, I split between me and a production assistant because I couldn't always wear the clown costume, especially when I was shooting. Yeah. But so when we got to the fourth movie, Steve said to me, he's like, hey, I don't think I'm going to be able to kill you in this one. And I was like, yeah. I was like, no, it's upsetting to me, but I think our audience will be okay with it. And while we were working everything through, I think he started casting and was looking for people to fit the build of the clown. Yeah. And he said, who do you like from, these 3 or 4 people? And he's like, I'm not really too sure. And I don't really want to spend the money on this. And I said, why are you spending the money at all? And he goes, well, don't you hate wearing the clown costume over and over again? And I was like, nope. Yeah. I love wearing the clown costume. Yeah. And he's like, oh, okay, then you just be the clown. And that's why I stayed the clown.
Well, I would guess that goes back to your love of those franchises also, right? I mean, you get to be Jason. You get to be Freddy.
100%. And listen, I know it's a mask thing, so you don't really get it's not like it's my face that people are afraid of my face. They're afraid of the clown mask. But I also know, I'm a horror fan. After we made the first movie, I dove into found footage. I directed a documentary about paranormal activity. I saw that, yeah. I've done so much stuff in found footage since Hell House that I feel like there's moments and little things here and there that I've seen or I can contribute to. So there's, and that's always the benefit of working with Steve is we'll be doing something and he'll be working on something and I'll be like, ooh, this would be cool if we did this in the background. So I'll just do it. And he'll be like, that's great. Let's do that. So it's given me a lot of flexibility, not only as the producer who's making sure that this whole thing is coming together, but also to be like, hey, I can add some creepy moments in for you here and there without you even like saying, we need to make this better or why is this not working? Like he has the thing that I've always thought about it is the reason why Steve and I work so well together is because he has another director helping him along as opposed to a producer who doesn't have any creative input whatsoever.
Well, it makes total sense that you guys are kind of polar opposites. And so you're playing one side of the brain, he's playing the other.
Right.
So, are you going to be the clown in the fifth one?
I should be, right?
Okay.
I'll say this: I don't know the answer to that question, but I will say if Steve's on board, I'm on board.
So Stephen did tell us that because the first thing we went into is if you make a fifth one, which I'm assuming he will, he said that he has a feature that he's making, and then he would maybe return to Hell House. But we are very big proponents that it's just Tully's story at this point, because I mean that's the well that seems to keep giving. Right. I mean, the clowns, Tully, those two guys, whoever they are, the fair, all of that stuff, that seems to be the thing. And I got to tell you, for me, it ended up being my favorite, just simply because, he mentioned Star Wars earlier, and I've mentioned this in a couple other interviews we've done. If you never leave Hoth, you don't have a story, I mean, you can't make all the sequels. And so being able to move this stuff around just totally makes sense to me. And it opens up huge worlds for you guys to tell other stories.
Well, listen, so I'm sure you guys have heard about the Abaddon tapes and all of that stuff. And that was always the direction we wanted to go in, because the Abaddon tapes would be basically, they'd be combo found footage and narrative, which would be able to give us an opportunity to elevate, but it'd also be bigger budget so we can put a lot more into these episodes. Sure. But basically what each episode was supposed to be was a different piece of a story. So you'd learn more about the clown's history, you'd learn more about Tully, you'd learn more about these different things. But the reason why Steve and I have not chosen to go down a path of doing Tully's story or doing those types of things and keep it more in the modern present day is 100% a budget. Budgetary.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah. I mean, if we did Tully's story, we would have to do 70s things. We would have to do 80s things. Yeah. We would have to go. And again, they're not period pieces expensive wise, like doing the 1600s. But again, for the budgets that we're doing these things on, like we were already called out a couple times on different things about, hey, this is the 80s, that person wouldn't wear something like that, or something, and so on, even in like the 15 seconds that you see something. Yeah. So for us to actually be somewhat accurate and be able to tell a good story without distracting from like mishaps or things that we have that are incorrect, I think the goal of what we probably want to do is to get a bigger budget and have like a healthier budget so that we could go back. But I have a feeling, should a fifth come about, we're probably going to do something in the vein of what we've always wanted to do, which centers around the fair. The only thing is I think it's going to be more about the fair present day and the one that they're bringing back that they reference at the end of Origins, as opposed to the fair that took place in the 90s.
Well, that makes total sense because, I mean, you see the clown at the end. I mean, the fair's coming back, all of that stuff. I mean, that makes total sense to me. Although, if you don't tell that Tully story at some point, I'm taking to Reddit and just flaming you all over the place. Okay, well,
take to every studio and tell them to get us one.
Yeah, you got it. I'll get on that tomorrow. Okay, so I've talked a lot. I'm going to leave it up to them to ask a couple of questions.
Sure.
Well, I think we were, in being so interested in that story is it's kind of that whole. Mike and I have talked about it. It's that whole idea of, and even when you were talking about, the Secret Service stuff not working out. Every one of these characters, meets their fate because the devil, as we have said before, is just so opportunistic. They see somebody who is, what they wanted, they didn't get it, but there's somebody who can answer that. And we were very intrigued when we talked to both the actor that played Tully and then also to Patrick Gideon, when we talked to the person that played Patrick, is, both of them were really horrific accidents where they lost a loved one. We're kind of making a judgment on Tully. Something happened to his daughter. We don't know what.
Right.
And obviously in talking with Brad and Tully, he was, I was a great man of faith, and I must have prayed hours for something to happen, and it didn't. And then all of a sudden he's presented with someone who can make that change. And we were very intrigued with this idea of when Tully would see his daughter or when Patrick would see his sister, this idea of, were they seeing the demon that we were seeing on screen? Or was like Patrick seeing his daughter, his sister? And Patrick, Gideon had a real good answer. He goes, I saw both. I would see the demon and I would see my sister. And he goes, that's just the price I was willing to pay. And I think a lot, Mike and I talk about it, it's just there's so much in that choice, that human choice, and that human frailty of wanting to take. If anybody, if the devil's going to say yes, a lot of people are going to take that choice, and that's what makes these characters.
Yeah.
And they all have. There's all one dedicated to the cause, whether it's Alec or Jessica or Margot, who is going to take however many friends they have straight to hell with them.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's what makes it.
I was going to say, when you think about good versus evil and you think about right and wrong and all of that kind of stuff, any movie you've ever seen, including Star Wars, the things that make, like with the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe and all these things that have come up, the best movies are the ones where the characters have the best villains in them. So like Loki is such an amazing character because what Loki believes is that he is right, that what he's doing is altruistic. Like that's the reason why so if you have these characters that are just trying to do evil for evil's sake, you'll lose an audience at some point. Like these characters and these actors who are making these choices, along with Steve giving them direction, they have to believe that what they're doing is right. They have to believe what they're doing is the direction of, and even if it is someone as Tully, like we obviously haven't touched on this yet. So, we might, but whether he's doing it for the sake of he lost his daughter and he's getting revenge on everyone for it, or he lost his daughter and what he was doing was incorrect and this is the correct way, and this new world that he's serving is actually the way to make things happen. Whichever way we decide to go with that kind of stuff, the character Brian, whoever's playing him or a younger version, has to believe that what they're doing is good, or not good, but correct. They have to have that belief that this is the right thing to do versus, no, I know I'm doing the bad thing and I'm just going to continue to do the bad thing because I want to be the bad guy. You know what I mean?
Well, that's a one-dimensional character at that point, right? And you got to have them make those human choices. If you want people to buy into it.
Well, and then you go into even more character exploration. When does somebody who's doing the right thing for the right reason, is there ever an opportunity where they have to do the bad thing to create a cult? To get that amount of people to help serve something beyond the wall. It to me, that's what makes these characters, and it's told in a lot of stories, but it's just this particular series that's what makes me so interested in it, because I guess it's just the framing of the lore and the characters and what's coming next.
I got to tell you, for the amount of money I'm assuming these movies are made with, and the caliber of actors you are able to get, they are done super well, by the way. That is one of the things that is really impressive about this series, and I'm assuming the fifth movie, but that's one of the things that's very impressive about this series is that, as an audience on the outside here, we don't know any of these people. We've never seen them in things, but then they come in and they're just so committed. And then we've been told over and over, these are like 14, 15-day shooting schedules. And so,
oh no, they're like 10-day shooting
holy
schedules.
Crap. So it's just, it's amazing how much they put into this. And I'm assuming they end up being grips. They end up being, prop people, all of the stuff, because if you don't do all hands on deck, I don't know how you do this in 10 to 15 days.
Yeah. I mean, we've consistently kept our crew to around 10 people.
Wow.
So usually every film that we've done is around 10 people. And again, this goes to the, we've in one of the films, we brought on a cinematographer who was phenomenal, but was a little bit more hands-on in terms of the lighting and all these other things. And ultimately that wasn't one of our best reviewed films. And it's like, there's certain things that like you mentioned earlier is like the mistakes actually work better.
Yeah.
And so I think where we've gotten to with all four of these films is the actors have to be good. That's first and foremost.
Sure.
And the one thing that I always find interesting is the breadcrumbs of all of these things, because Steve throws a lot of breadcrumbs into things, and I sometimes get him to pull some of those things back because I know that based on we read the same things that you guys read or write. We're seeing all this stuff out there. The benefit is I think we could actually see that stuff and be like, maybe we'll go in this direction based on what our audience likes. Or we could say we're not doing that at all. We're going in a completely different direction.
Yeah.
But one of the things with the breadcrumbs is it opens up all these other possibilities. And I can see at times I'm like, oh, okay, this might open up so many doors that we're never going to be able to answer it. So like, again, talking about me being the logic police, one of the things that I usually do try to give Steve some advice on, give him some notes on is like, the more breadcrumbs you put in, I think he's done a really good job with it. But the more he adds in, the more questions we have to answer. And at some point, we're not going to be able to answer every single one of those questions. Mm-hmm. And I am in no way comparing us to this show, because when the show came out, it was phenomenal and it broke every single record. But you're looking at a potential opportunity of having a Lost type ending where no one is going to be satisfied and everyone's going to be pissed off because half of the things that you wanted answered were never answered. Yeah. So I think we've done a good job of laying all this stuff out there. In my mind, what we're trying to do with these Origins movies is answer a lot of these questions while also continuing to move along in the timeline and bring about some pretty cool scares for people.
Steven brought up Lost also. So I can tell that is a consistent theme that you guys are kind of trying to play to. And it's a good one. It's a great theme to follow if you got to follow one.
Yeah. But again, also, you know, just so you know, like a lot of time, most of the times these things are planned, but sometimes they're not. Sometimes you put things in the movie and you don't realize that your audience is going to register with them so well. Yeah. And then it's like, well, wow, the audience has really cared about this. Maybe we lean on this for the next movie. And I actually think, you know, I was joking earlier, and I think Steve would say the same thing earlier. 1 in 4 are probably like, one, in my opinion, in terms of the reviews and the way people have watched these movies, it's probably 1, 4, 3, 2. That's probably the order of what we see in terms of fans and viewership. Sure. But I think the mishaps along the way of things that didn't work out well in 2, but worked out better in 1, or didn't work out well in 3 and worked out better in 4, something like that. A lot of that has to do with pulling on threads that we think are going to work and they actually don't wind up working. So us being like, okay, let's get back to the original. Let's get back to the basics. And I think that's what Steve tried to do with Origins was, let's get back to a movie that is really, really heavily invested into creepy scares. And let's bring about a newer audience. Let's bring about a female audience. Let's bring in something that was a little different than the first, but kind of follows similar themes. And then, you know, then you have to trust your crew and trust your actors and hope that the edit gets you there. And I think we were very fortunate to have another group. Every one of these movies, we've had phenomenal crew. We've had a phenomenal cast. And I can honestly say, and this is no disrespect to 1, 2, and 3, the 4th set was the best set I had ever been on in my entire life, because every single person wanted to be there and every single person was invested in making sure the story or the production was doing better. Because I think in general, you know, it's a hard industry. So sometimes people take jobs for money. Sometimes they take them because they need a paycheck or something like that. And not to say that there were people on, you know, the other films that did that, but it was a different feeling on this one. And it felt like we kind of knew in the middle of shooting, like, this one's going to be good. Like this is going to get a good reaction from our audience.
One of the creepiest things in all of the movies for me is the girl hiding behind the doorway, you know, with the mask on. That is my that's my nightmare, is to walk down my hall and see somebody like just peeking out like that, you know? Yeah. And I got to tell you, I am 54 years old and I still double check the dark, you know? So, I mean, it's
ever since I've seen Urban Legend, I check.
There you go. You know, don't drive behind pipes. Don't do any of that. Yeah. So, Caitlin, you have anything for me?
Well, just going back to budget, and this is not a question. It's more of just me putting myself out there. But if y'all ever need help with clothing people to look...
Where are you guys based?
We're in Waco, Texas.
So not anywhere near, but I do have a vintage clothing company, and I would be more than happy to outfit people for free.
Hey, never let an opportunity pass you by, right?
Yeah, I mean, so I was like...
Our production and costume designer is Sophie Snyder. She is phenomenal, and she like creates the costumes and all this kind of stuff. But I feel like I should put you in touch with her, because she would be the person to talk to on this stuff. Because again, you know, with these smaller crews, a lot of times it's hey, here's your budget, figure this out. And she has done a lot with a little.
Yeah.
And I think we actually hadn't had Sophie on the first 3 movies, but we had her on this movie. She was on board, and then our set designer is my wife, Devin. So we had something that we hadn't had in the past, and also that kind of upped a little bit of the production value without having to go crazy over the top with budget. And and I'm not sure if Steve mentioned, but we have another movie coming out. It's Steve's first narrative film. It's called 825 Forest Road. And Sophie was our production and costume designer on that one, and she blew that one out of the water.
That's really awesome. Cool. Yeah, that's fantastic. So let's get into if you've got a couple more minutes, let's ask a couple of kind of lore questions. And I know Casey is
no, before you forget, the ones we haven't got to ask that you've always meant to ask was about the trailer.
Yeah.
And the hearse.
Okay, so this bugs me. So when they go into the woods, and
in four,
and we get to the trailer with the police tape, and there's just a hearse sitting there, and then it seems like the only thing I can compare it to is like a boat garage at the end with one of the very tall Jawas standing there, just being all creepy. So do you have any information on the trailer or the hearse that you could pass along to us?
Well, I don't know if I'm ruining something here, and maybe Steven wouldn't want me to say this, but
don't get in trouble.
No. Go ahead. Get in trouble. Yeah.
I will say this. Sometimes when you're on set and you see something that you know is just going to be creepy, you just shoot it because it's going to be creepy and let people wander. And
there it is. Yeah.
What those things are.
That's perfect.
Did you see a lot of what they were talking about? And a lot of people were saying, "Oh, that car was the one that Win. That was his car crash car. He was amazing. He was involved. He killed the girl.
That's the stuff. That's the stuff you couldn't even write. I mean, they just come up with it for you.
I'm fascinated by is I try to stay off the Reddit things and whatnot, because I know when you have some form of success, you're going to have people who are very complimentary and very nice, and you're also going to have the opposite. Yeah. And so it's easy to get caught up in those things and think all the great things, but then see all the not so great things as well. But it is very interesting to read things and see where people are taking these things. Because sometimes it's like, wow, you're actually 100% accurate. That's why we did that, or that's where we're going. And then we read other things and we're like, I have no idea where you're pulling this from. But it's great thinking about this stuff because we're not even thinking about it.
Well, I think we told Steven in the first interview, one of the goals of this show is to just get Reddit to yell at us. I mean, that's really where we want to head. Well, Joe, what's next for you? What else you got?
So the first thing I think coming up, which Steve and I are very excited about, is 825 Forest Road. That we finally completed that film. We're in the process of looking for distribution on it. So I have a funny feeling that's going to be sometime in the winter that will hopefully come out, if not in the spring. There's obviously, Steve and I are talking about two things. One is the next Hell House, should that come to fruition. And then another film, which he probably mentioned to you guys that he wanted to do, that we're working on. That's all the stuff I'm doing with Steve. And then I am working on two other projects. One that I'm in the process of rewriting that I'm hoping to go into production on as a writer-director on next year, which is kind of a slasher. I live in the slasher world a little bit more than I live in the supernatural world.
Sure.
So that one is hopefully I'll be shooting next year to come out in 2025. And then I know I mentioned this, but I had a very, the good thing about doing two films in 1 year was we kind of, basically whatever we did with Hell House, I kind of did the opposite with the other one in terms of education and learning. So we went with a very small sales agent in Terror Films for Hell House. They wound up being phenomenal, and we should have done that with the other film that I did. But we went with a much bigger one and kind of fell through the cracks on a lot of stuff. But that film that I shot, it was originally called Seclusion. It got renamed Cabin Fear. And then this is like an anthology of the posters along the way because it just kept changing. But I, being young and naive, when I sold it and had my deal, I didn't realize that I kind of gave away Final Cut. So they made changes in it. And basically the movie was meant to be a movie that makes fun of archetypes. And it wound up being a movie that just served those archetypes. And you know, again, it was a narrative film. It was every mistake I made, you saw. And so basically I just got the rights back to it. So I just got it pulled from everywhere. And I'm actually, for the first time ever, recutting it the way I always intended for it to be cut. Oh, wow. So that's probably going to be released in the next few months as well. And, you know, I'm not trying to take something that I made a decade ago and be like, this is the most amazing thing, but it at least will have the humor in it that I always intended. Yeah. So that will be the next thing I think that comes out around the time that 825 Forest Road comes out.
Yeah, just don't remake Cabin Fever twice. You know, that if you could keep from doing that, that'd be great. I'm not a huge fan. Number one, thank you again for lending us some of your time. We really do appreciate it. Do we have any last lore or world building question?
I have a question just for my own curiosity, because I noticed this and I just want an answer if you can give us one.
Why do you have cats?
Well, in the hallway when they were, and this is in 4, when they were doing the home movies, and they jump out and they scare the other sister, and it's Margaret, right? Margaret goes, what Patrick thought it would be really scary if I'd come out of your closet.
Right.
And then at the end of the movie, she goes in the closet and she's sitting there. Was that a happy accident or was that just planned?
I think that was intended.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Because we talked to Patrick Gideon about that, and it to me it seemed like maybe that was the last vestige of Patrick being there to say, okay, I'm going to play one last joke on you. That's what I thought, but but that was interesting.
Is Patrick dead? Oh, okay. All right. Just double checking. Yeah. Just trying.
I don't know. The one thing that is interesting that I'm not going to answer is the characters in this franchise. There are characters who have died and come back. Yeah. There are characters who may not be dead, and then there's the live characters. So that might be one of the questions we never wound up answering. Sure. But I'm going to keep that TBD for the time being and keep you guys guessing.
That's great. That's great. No, and here's the thing. This show, it literally is about guessing, right? And so it's we're going to get as much information as we possibly can out of everybody involved, and then we're going to come up with theories. Again, we don't want to add to, but we want to analyze and really scrutinize and not just be a movie review show. We want to, that's for you. You can do that later. But we want to play along as your audience, and vocalize those questions and not sit behind a monitor to do it,
I think that's really smart. And let me say, thank you all for having me on. I think, one of the things that I mentioned earlier is, we don't have Hell House 1, 2, 3, or 4 without people like you watching these movies and talking about these movies. This is definitely a movie that is a word of mouth movie. Yeah. And we are so grateful for our fans. We're so grateful for you guys for what you do. And I do think, Steve and I have done, I can't even tell you how many podcasts, but you guys are trying to do something that's a little bit different. And I think you have to do that nowadays to set yourself apart from all the other things. Not to say reviews are bad. No. But you definitely, I think you guys are going about it the right way. And I think if, you guys seem to have a decent audience already. So I encourage you to keep doing your thing, because obviously it's working. And,
I really, really appreciate that. It's we were trying to do something that you guys would kind of be proud of, and we watched enough interviews and watched Steven tell us that The Exorcist was his favorite movie about 14 times. So that's not a question I'm going to ask.
It's funny. Steve and I always get into this disagreements because his favorite movie is The Exorcist. Yeah. He also thinks it's his scariest. My favorite is Nightmare on Elm Street. I think Halloween, the original, is the best horror movie ever made for its budget. But I will say this, we were chatting the other day. I have a very hard time, if I get introduced in a movie to a form and a style of what that movie is, and then that movie breaks that rule, and knocks me out of it, that's where like the pulling,
Yep.
you know, the mom through the door,
Yep.
that's where I have issues. I think Steve is a little bit more forgiving on those things because he understands that like in order for you to be in this movie, you have to also like you're watching a supernatural movie, you kind of have to understand that like they're doing things that are demonic and no one really knows what that is. So,
Sure.
But the one thing I finally figured it out. There was something that never really sat right with me with The Exorcist. Like I've always thought it was a good movie. I rewatched it a year ago just to make sure I didn't miss things.
Yeah.
I always thought it was a good movie. I always thought it was a scary movie. I always thought it should be up there on one of the best horror movies ever told.
Right.
There's always something that I was like, it's not scary to me. And I've always said I'm not a religious person, so I understand that it would probably be scarier for religious people than people who are non-believers. But the thing that hit it on the head, and it happened because I saw The Exorcist Believer. I saw it with a couple of friends, and did you guys see The Exorcist Believer?
No,
yeah, I saw it.
Yeah.
I saw it, but I fell asleep.
She sounds so disappointed. Yeah.
Well,
I'm not going to ruin it for everyone.
Yeah, sure.
There's a character in the movie who gets his neck snapped.
Oh, yeah. I was awake for that part.
Right. And when his head turns around to face behind him, he's dead and he falls to the ground. And the thing that has never made sense to me is if a demon the rules of The Exorcist is this is real. Like this is 100. We're not living in a fabricated, like this is real. Like this is shit that's happening. Like Rosemary's Baby. This is really happening.
Yeah.
When Regan turns her head all the way around and doesn't die, like the physical form of her doesn't die, that's where I'm just like, I don't believe any of this anymore.
It becomes almost a cartoon at that point.
Correct.
And I think that's why the spider walk, was taken out originally, because it was just a little too much, Yeah.
Exactly.
So I want to ask you, I'm sorry, one more question if you're cool with that.
Yeah, go for it.
So I saw a movie recently. There's two movies that have affected me in the same way. One of which is Blair Witch, because I saw it in the theater, and the theater I saw it in, they turned the lights on immediately as the thing ends. It just scared the living shit out of me, right? And even as a grown man, next day I'm taking a shower with my eyes open, kind of thing, right? So the second one, and I don't know why, and Casey's going to react to this, but I don't know why this one affected me this way. But have you seen Skinamarink?
I have.
That is the weirdest, most original. It could be terrible to people. It could be wonderful to people. To me, again, sitting in my well-lit living room, I had to pause it a couple of times because I don't know what's going to happen. It didn't play by the rules, and so nothing came from under the bed. No, I don't know what the hell that was talking to him at the end. I mean, it just, it made...
I don't know. Do you both feel the same way about Skinamarink?
I told Mike, I think that there are some movies that are just too cerebral for me. I told him, I said, I can't believe you made me watch that.
So listen, I don't want to ever, like, art is art. It
is.
Some people love it. Some people don't. I just know I saw that movie in theaters, and at the end of the movie, I think every person in the audience had a collective, why did we just sit here for the last hour and 30 minutes watching this? Like, I listen, I get it. It's new. It's different.
It's experimental. Yes.
I get all of that. But I just remember something that I learned in film school. And I remember everyone was trying to do art house films. Everyone was trying to be unique and experimental and all this other kind of stuff. And I remember being like, why are you trying to do all these new and inventive things when you've not even proven that you could tell an A to B story of like, this is where the character starts, this is where the character ends. And to me, I just felt like when I watched it, I was like, I mean, I could literally turn on my TV and stare at a wall.
Well, that's what you did. You stared at a wall and a corner and the floor and Yeah.
So I did not have the same feeling you had.
Sure. Well, I'm not saying it was. I'm not saying it was a good feeling. I'm just saying it was a different feeling. It hit me different than other movies.
He was disturbed. It did something to him. For me, I was like, disturbing. I just like I said, I couldn't get into it. Maybe it was just not.
I hadn't eaten all day or something. It's probably something like low blood sugar. Probably
all the LSD. Maybe
that's what it was.
Well, Joe, you have to start saying your diet is what caused you to feel sick. Maybe that's more telling. Can I ask the three of you? What are the three of your favorite horror movies?
Well, I'm going to tell you the one, and when you were talking about horror comedy, and I don't know if you see this film this way, but my probably just because it matches that perfectly, it wasn't made for that. Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2. I see that as a dark romantic comedy between Leatherface and the girl. Yeah. He was he was trying to get that girl the whole time. Yeah. And he never did.
Poor Leatherface.
Yeah. That was in the final scene, the little, the whatever the mountain thing is that they shot in. That is about 10 minutes from you.
Yeah. It's just down the road from us.
When we were teenagers, I mean, that thing was still up and going.
I can imagine Texas Chainsaw Massacre being a big part of something that influenced you guys in a scary way based on where you live.
Yeah, the first one is just it's horrific. The other one is
every time I suck on my finger, I think about.
Yeah,
I was gonna say like Cabin in the Woods movies. Do they have a different feeling for you since you're not really from an area like that, or those get you too?
So my favorite, and it's not, you can't really call it a horror movie, but Evil Dead 2 is my all-time favorite. And that is it. I've got ash on my leg and the whole thing, right? I mean, and I think the thing about horror, also the thing about comedy, is a time in your life when you see it matters,
right?
Because that one hit me at the absolute right time, and then Ash could do no wrong,
right.
Because Army of Darkness, it's not a great movie. But I love it.
It's not even a horror movie, really.
It's not. No, it's a goofy action thing. It's
right.
Jason and the Argonauts is what it is,
Yep.
And so, but I love it because of what it is and what it gave me. It paid off a lot of the stuff that I learned in Evil Dead 2,
Right.
And I think of Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 as the same movie, just with better budgets,
Better budgets, and they're more self-aware of what's going on.
Absolutely. Yeah. But I also love the fact that I waited 30-something years and then got to see the Pontiac show up in Doctor Strange. So, I mean, that's a true payoff for me. And I love that kind of stuff. Anytime somebody pays off later, that's my favorite. Yeah.
I think for me, speaking of like seeing something at the right time, because I don't really...
Skinamarink.
Yes. No. I don't really know why it kind of is my favorite horror film, but the one that kind of started it all for me and made me really start appreciating horror was Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho. Mm-hmm. So that was the one that just kind of made me be like, I really love this.
I frankly am a big fan of the remake.
Yeah, the remake, 2003
remake,
was
brilliant.
Yeah. That was also really good.
It's basically movie sampling is what it is.
Right.
It's
right.
So
pretty much, yeah.
I think Mike did his doctoral thesis on Human Centipede.
I did, yeah.
He loves that one. So
yeah. No, I've never seen it. Well, Joe, again, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it, and we hope that if we get down the line on this thing and have some unanswered questions, we can contact you again.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or at least the cats.
Completely. I mean, they're open.
Sure.
They're on their way out. So.
Sure.
No. I like my door is open. Like, if you guys ever want to chat, let me know.
Thank you.
I think we both try to make it a point to be accessible to people as opposed to hiding behind things. So yeah, I mean, if you guys ever need anything, I'd love to hear all the stuff once you guys
get
things. Like, let me know. But yeah. For anything in the future, if we do things Hell House related, non-Hell House related, and you guys want to chat about any of that stuff, even on your review show,
definitely,
let us know.
Yeah,
that would be wonderful. So I'll tell you a little thing that Casey and I have talked about. If you do make 5, we're gonna hit you up pretty hard to wear a Boobays T-shirt on one of the characters at some point.
Or a body on the floor.
Yeah,
I'll be a body.
Happy to be a body.
I love it.
I love it. If you need an old guy that's been killed. Yeah.
You guys do know that the number one question that we get asked on all these podcasts are, can we be a dead body? Or,
yeah.
That's fantastic. No,
we have a laundry list of people that want to get killed.
I don't want to be a dead body. I'll just drive you someplace or something. It's fine. Yeah. Well, Joe, thanks again, man. We really appreciate
of course.
it. And good luck with everything, especially the recut. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that
Thank
is.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate it. And good luck to you with everything, too.
All
if
right.
there's anything I can do to help you guys, let me know.
Thank you so much.
Have a good evening.
Have a good evening. All right.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
See ya. Okay, so I thought Tully was my favorite interview,
I'm
but
gonna
this
say
was my favorite.
This was just sitting around shooting the crap.
It was, yeah.
It was
with a guy who makes movies.
Yeah. It was very fun.
I liked his cats.
There were cats.
No,
I haven't been on all of them,
Right.
but this was probably one of the most engaging.
Well, look how open. I mean, just that's what has struck us this entire time. We've talked to these folks, and they are just so open to talking to us and just being available. And that's not just the writers and directors and producers. It's the actors. It's anybody that was involved. It's fantastic.
Well, you get something totally different from him and Steven. You get the reason why the movies are the movies are made the way they are. With the actors, you get why the characters are created the way they are.
Right.
And they're two totally different pieces of the puzzle, but they're all these interviews have been great.
I feel like if I had stuck with Joe for a little bit longer, I could have got the script from 5 out of him. I think he would have told me. No, Joe, that was really fantastic, and I look forward to anything he does. And it's not often that you see a horror guy quote Dumb and Dumber, and so I really enjoyed that as well.
Yeah,
I think
that's
he's well rounded. So, all right, I don't know who's next. But
whoever says yes first.
That's exactly right. Yeah, I'm going to start hitting them up, and we'll see who we can get. But this has been a fucking blast so far.
Yeah.
I have a question, and I don't know if this is too soon. Is there any way people can contact us?
So they can. I would say let's use the Boobays contact to begin with. And tell us what that is, Caitlin.
All right. You can reach out to us on our one social media platform, which is Instagram, and that is at Boobays Podcasts, and that's BOOBAES, because we're your Boobays, not your Boo Babes. And that's how you can reach out to us, and then let us know any thoughts you have for the Abaddon Eyes crew, and we can send all that information along.
Yeah. I also, if you need something or you want to contact somebody else or whatever, you can always contact roguemedianetwork.com, because that's where we sit. So for Casey and for Caitlin and for the missing Josh, which I hope he's not in a ditch, I say thank you guys for listening, and we'll be back with another one. You can find Abaddon Eyes exploring the Hell House LLC universe anywhere you get your podcasts or at roguemedianetwork.com.
I found the gateway, and it's glorious. Play us a song. Diana?
This has been a Rogue Media Network production. In a world where dreams meet reality, there exists a place where your business can flourish. That place is Shopify. Imagine having the power to craft your online store with tools that make it as easy as a gentle breeze. Whether you're an artisan of handmade wonders, a creator of digital treasures, or a curator of the latest trends, Shopify stands by your side. With its customizable templates, seamless integrations, and support that's always there, your dream store is just a heartbeat away. Join millions of visionaries around the globe and let Shopify guide you on your journey. Visit roguemedianetwork.com/Shopify. That's roguemedianetwork.com/SHOPIFY. And embark on your free trial. Shopify, where your commerce dreams come to life.